Spoilers! Yeah! Oh. Aww. Alright everybody, pull up your big kid pants, tighten your grip, adjust that stance. It's Japan Sinks 2020, which is an odd title. I mean, anime is written, greenlighted, etc. well before its release year, so no one had any idea what 2020 would be like when the show was in production. It's a coincidence, and the 2020 is a simple disambiguation between this anime and its preceding movie counterparts, Japan Sinks 1973 and Japan Sinks 2006. Oh, and the novel and the 1974 TV series. Yeah, Japan Sinks has a huge legacy, and for all intents and purposes, this is a sad story revolving around large-scale existential horror. When we posted about covering it earlier this week, we were met with a surprising amount of people who didn't like this show. However, for me, it was the first series in a long time that really made me feel something important. And let's make one thing clear before we start. Japan Sinks is not actually about Japan sinking. So we are going to deep dive into the archipelago at the bottom of the sea and dredge up all of the awesome intents and messages in this short series, and hopefully together we'll put the pieces in a cohesive pattern to reveal the mastery behind Japan Sinks 2020. Let's get into it. Very important before we start, I just want to show you guys something. About 2 months ago, we made an Afro Samurai video and used the themes within the show to discuss important current events and show our support for the BLM movement. And if you've taken a look at our channels, since then we've lost about half of our viewership on every video. Because of YouTube not showing our videos on people's homepages, this has nothing to do with subscribers. We've gone up in subscribers. We got punished for speaking our mind and talking about something very important. And I just want to let you guys know that we're not going to stop doing that. But this is why we ask people to think about joining the Patreon. Beyond the awesome community and the extra stuff we do to make it a truly unique experience, we ask people to join so that our careers aren't censored and jeopardized by YouTube's arbitrary censorship and suppression. Patreon allows us to make the videos we want to make, and hopefully the ones you want us to make too, and the ones that the world needs to see. So if you think that's as unfair as we do, if you think that it's wrong to get punished for standing up for what is right, to possibly have your career taken away from you for standing up for what is right, the best thing that you can do is help us become as unreliant on YouTube as possible, and all it takes is $1. And honestly, if we could ask for less, we would. Anyway, on with the show. So like I said in the intro, Japan Sinks 2020 has a large legacy behind it, including its preceding movies, but also going as far back to the original Godzilla. And as most of us know, Godzilla isn't actually about a giant lizard attacking Japan, but instead it's an allegory of the existential dread of nuclear annihilation. Japan Sinks works in much the same way. It plays off the fear of natural disaster while actually dealing with the fear of not only losing Japan, but what happens to the Japanese when Japan is gone. Now, if you would like to go back into the themes of the movies, I highly recommend a video called Why Japan Sinks Matters by Pause and Select. So with that said, let's talk about Japan. Seeing as you're here, you probably find Japan fascinating, and there is good reason for that. There's very few first world countries out there that give off the sense of magic and mystery that Japan does. In the last 100 or so years, Japan went from a feudal system to one of the most dangerous military powers on Earth to one of the most technologically advanced civilizations on the planet. Japan has a hard-working, fastidious culture of refinement and perfection with a grounding, deep-rooted spiritual connection to the Earth. For so long, they cut themselves off from the world, developing largely without interference and creating a society utterly unique and captivating before unleashing their might and beauty onto the world. However, 100 years is a very short amount of time for a large amount of progress, leaving generation after generation disillusioned with the next. And now it's 2020. Japan Sinks revolves mainly around 5 characters, each with their own individual personalities and opinions, especially when it comes to Japan. Ayumu Muto and her brother Go are both half-Japanese residents of Tokyo. Ayumu prioritizes family over all else, believing home is where the heart is, while Go, on the other hand, hates Japan. often preferring to attempt to speak in English over Japanese when he can. Their mother Mari is a Filipino immigrant and Japanese by marriage to their full-blooded Japanese father Koichiro, an eccentric but warm-hearted and strong man. Ayumu's childhood friend and running senpai Haruo is full-blooded Japanese and loves his country despite becoming a recluse late in his high school career. And then there's Kite, an Estonian YouTuber and millionaire who drops in later to join the group through happenstance. And while these are the main forces behind the plot, each side character and situation they come across sets up another flag in this mental battlefield of what is Japan and is it important? Because unlike most other places, the Japanese people are tied to their land to the point where Japan without the Japanese, or more importantly, the Japanese without Japan, is a mind-numbingly horrific thought. You see, the main event that got all of these existential fears churning was due to an undying love of Japan. The country's World War II expansionism was partaken as an act to secure modern natural resources for the island and its people. This was the first time the Japanese took a major step outside of their home, and their punishment for it was one of the most catastrophic events in history, the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now think about it this way, for hundreds of years, your people existed on a small island shut off from the rest of the world, and the first time you step up to play ball with the big boys, you get slapped harder than anybody in history. After that, it is now an internal reflex to stay at home. But the Japanese were taught that even home wasn't safe. And even without the threat of nuclear annihilation, Japan is in a precarious position, literally. About 300 miles off the coast of Tokyo is the Boso Triple Junction, i.e. an area where 3 tectonic plates meet. It is a destructive plate boundary, as well as one of only 2 trench triple junctions. Basically what that means is at this junction, subduction can occur, aka sinking land, and its closest land is exactly Tokyo. And this isn't just a fear, this is a reality. After the last major earthquake, an area of Japan was subject to subduction. It literally sank. So after the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, Ayumu is changing after a track meet. It's a school track meet. She's 14, she wasn't in the Olympics. When an unprecedented earthquake hits, decimating Tokyo and destroying virtually everything. After the shock, she awakens to see her track mates strewn about the locker room in various degrees of their death throes. One of her friends is trapped under a locker and dying, but instead of helping her, Ayumu runs away, cutting her leg on a jagged piece of metal on her way out. Meanwhile, her mother's inbound flight crash lands in the river and she saves a young boy from drowning. The family is later united at a hilltop shrine only for a helicopter to crash, spewing bodies out of it, and at the same time, a man from another camp arrives explaining that their refugee point was annihilated by fire from the city. Moving on and grabbing the despondent Haruo and their neighbor Nanami, the Muto family, led by Koichiro, goes on their own way, hoping to make it to safe ground. The next day, while foraging for yams, Koichiro unknowingly walks into a minefield left from World War II and explodes, leaving his family devastated and his wife Mari to take charge. After getting picked up by a Japanese dude who is really stoked about finally getting to let loose, Nanami is assaulted by him at a gas station. Her and Mari kick his ass and move on. However, at a pee break, Nanami inhales poison gas that was seeping up from the cracks left by the quakes and dies instantly. Before Ayumu can run in and die too in an attempt to save her, the YouTuber Kite flies down from the sky on a paraglider to warn them of the gas. And at this point, the messages are a little mixed. Obviously, we're shown the fragility of Japan through the complete decimation of Tokyo. The people who decided to stay close to the city all burned alive, but those who rested at the Shinto shrine survived. However, then we have the good-natured Japanese native die to a threat planted by the Japanese themselves. And I believe that this is a metaphor for the way that the old Japanese look at the new Japanese. Here is a man who married a foreigner and raised half Japanese children, which can be seen as polluting the bloodline, an issue which crops up later. But what about the quick death of Nanami? Well, despite Japan being a highly modernized nation, there are huge gaps in gender equality still plaguing the country to this day. Nanami is a modern, strong, and independent woman. Instead of letting the man have his way with her, she struck back and defeated him. She's also single and financially stable at 26, which is uncommon, and she works as a personal trainer at an osteopathic clinic. And again, she's killed by old poisonous gas that has been hiding under Japan for hundreds of years, much like a great deal ideal of Japanese misogyny is swept under the rug. This is an allegory for Japan's unresolved issues, which they turn a blind eye to. They're just as dangerous as the ones on the front page of the news, but they are ignored. So then the remaining group is saved by a foreigner, the ultimate insult to injury in the eyes of the old pre-war Japan. And if you think I'm just going English teacher on you, let's check out the next two characters so I can prove I'm not just full of hot air. So Kite leads the increasingly smaller group to a grocery store. However, Ayumu is hesitant about taking anything from it because it would be wrong. Even in an apocalyptic situation, she's holding on to these Japanese ideals stubbornly and even to a fault. And finally, she compromises with herself, deciding she'll come back and pay for it later. The group meanders about the store until they're assailed by arrows from a man hiding on the second floor, and Go is shot in the chest, but survives thanks to the video game system in his pocket taking the hit. Now, it turns out the shooter is an old man named Kunio who actually feels really bad about having shot a kid in the chest. To make up for it, he fixes the video game system and allows the group to stay the night. However, it's revealed early on that Kunio deeply dislikes foreigners. He snaps at Go for using English, and when they run into the Englishman Daniel after dealing with another quake and some nuclear rain, Kunio says he doesn't want to take him along. Kunio loves Japan and has old conservative ideals about what it is to be Japanese. He even carries a traditional Japanese longbow with him. However, like the traditional Japanese, he is intelligent and capable, and he's even able to fix advanced technology without a blueprint or instructions. Now, Go, on the other hand, is obsessed with foreigners and other nations, specifically Kite, who he idolizes to the point of wanting to move to Estonia himself, which, I'm gonna be honest, still hasn't really clicked with me. Maybe it's that Estonia is a huge far cry from Japan, or maybe it's trying to, point at PewDiePie being from the Nordic countries. I just don't know what the fixation on the particular country of Estonia is, but Go finds Japan suffocating, and it's no coincidence that he was the one shot by Kunio's arrow, or that it was perhaps a Japanese game system that brought Kunio and Go together. However, it isn't only opinions that separate these two. Kunio is in terrible shape. He obviously suffers from lung issues and is hopelessly addicted to opioids. He is rotting and decaying, a physical representation of how many feel about old Japan, whereas Go is young and up and coming with different and new aged opinions and ideals about Japan and its traditions. Then we have Daniel, a very strange European who has moved to Japan and absolutely loves it. He's fluent in the language and extremely knowledgeable of Japan's traditions and beliefs, even more so than Ayumu, Go, and Mari. He's also a survivor of the Kosovo War, a terrible race conflict in what was formerly known as Yugoslavia, which took place in the late 1990s. After the war, the country was split into 6 different territories, including Bosnia, Serbia, and Croatia. During a short discussion, Mari realizes that more than anyone, it's Daniel who understands losing his country, and not only was Yugoslavia dissolved, but during the conflict, millions of people were displaced all over Europe and America. I actually went to school with somebody who escaped Bosnia. And while Daniel represents an ideal foreigner, he also represents an ongoing issue in Japan that is rarely talked about, which is a growing disinterest in Japanese customs by Japanese citizens. Now, since starting Bonsai Pop, I have been told by actual Japanese people that I taught them something they didn't know about their own country or culture. So while we are seeing an insurgence of foreign interest in Japan's traditions and beliefs, Japan itself is seeing a decline in traditionalist practices. And this is likely due to modernization problems and the information age. While much of the Japanese lifestyle is commendable, healthy, and forward-thinking, there is a dark side. There is overworking, suppression of individuality, the aforementioned gender inequality, and the list really goes on. Japanese people actually have to live in Japan, and they don't get to look at it like a fish in a bowl like we do. And that can be very frustrating, especially to someone like Go who feels claustrophobic thanks to Japan's conservations. Now, all of these characters find themselves in Shan City, a seemingly perfect haven from the disaster eclipsing Japan. However, it's truly a culty pot farm on top of a gold-filled vault run by a Yakuza lady named Kanai, who also happens to be a medium. And for the record, yes, the dankalank is illegal in Japan. Any use and possession is punishable up to 5 years in prison and a fine. Growing, selling, or transporting is 7 to 10 years in the slammer. Kanai created Shan City to give her autistic son dignity as her vessel for communication with the dead. However, he truly has nothing to do with her skill. In this city, they practice the art of kintsugi, or golden repair, where broken pottery is fixed by using lacquer mixed with precious metal. A philosophy as well as an art, kintsugi shows the Japanese mindset of damage being part of an object's history rather than something to hide. Symbolism much? It also so happens that the scientist Onodera, who predicted all of this sinking happening in the first place, is crippled and resting in the facility's hospital while being taken care of by Ayumu as her for fun job. She eventually realizes his blinking and tapping is Morse code, figures out who he is, and that he's trying to alert her to an oncoming earthquake. Meanwhile, old man Kunio is off his nut from withdrawals, and he rides his scoot up the temple while killing guards with his bow in order to kidnap Kanai's kid, thinking it's his own granddaughter. He's locked away, but Kite rescues him on the kid's birthday festival right as another earthquake is coming. Kanai races to save her son, and as she reaches the top of the stairs, he gets up from his bed and says, "Thank you, mommy." 1 second before his dome gets caved in by a rock. Those were his first and final words. Now, people with severe autism can be and usually are hyper intelligent. However, with the severity of the condition, many of them are left without the ability to talk or communicate much at all. Life is a prison when you're stuck inside a body that cannot communicate fully, and instead of this simply being shock factor, this scene serves a purpose. Now, while the Mutos and crew escape, now with the crippled Onodera in tow, Kunio stays behind in order to not slow them down. He admits that his actual grandchild was swallowed by a landslide as a kid, and together, he and the few people who remained with Kanai, including Daniel, sink into the ground. Their last words being, "This is where I belong." It's also this time where Ayumu realizes her leg is infected. Now, I said the death of the boy, Daichi, was purposeful in its symbolism. He's representative, once again, of old Japan. Quiet, dutiful, intelligent, and loving of his family. His only words his whole life were in thanks to his mother, his rock, the person who took care of him. Yet, until his death, he was unable to communicate with the outside world. This is very much representative of pre-war Japanese ideals. Instead of the mother being the actual mom, that role was taken up by Japan itself. Live for Japan, die for Japan. In the end, Kunio and the others are swallowed by the country they loved, choosing to die with it rather than let it go and move forward. Now, at a port where evacuations are being held, Ayumu discovers that she's been given a free ride due to her athletic record and is allowed to board alone, an obvious parallel to Japan exporting what it's most proud of, while the people who hold these products aloft are left behind. However, Ayumu realizes her mother is on a pacemaker and leaves the ship as Mount Fuji erupts. Finding another evacuation point, the group attempts to board a megafloat, only to realize it's run by Japanese nationalist fanatics. Because of their mixed blood and foreign companion, the Mutos are denied access, which harkens back to earlier when I was talking about how Ayumu's father died from the pre-war mines. He again polluted pure Japanese blood. Nationalists are not about that. However, afterwards, the family is picked up by a sailor and the megafloat holding the nationalists runs aground and explodes. And at this point, do I even need to explain that one? The jig is up by now anyway. Japan sinks. Ayumu, Go, and Haruo are saved by Mari sacrificing herself. There is a very on-the-nose rap battle, and the data on Japan's tectonic activity is saved by Haruo, who also sacrifices himself. Then, the siblings and the scientist Onodera are saved by Kite's ingenuity and bravery, a foreigner's ingenuity and bravery. However, for Ayumu, the infection that had been spreading in her leg has gone too far, and it needs to be amputated. Japan Sinks is an emotional, gut-wrenching watch as the characters hope against hope to survive a catastrophe no one should ever have to live through. Yet between the death and destruction, a positive message for Japan's future is embedded in the show. And while there's struggle and turmoil now, there is an end in sight and future for the Japanese people. A future supported by many countries around the world. Despite the fear and dislike of foreign nations shown by the characters meant to represent old Japan, the world does come together to support the people who are displaced. Records are saved. Monuments are set up around the world to pay tribute to a sunken nation. Thanks to the research saved by Haruo's sacrifices, the UN keeps Japan's borders as Japanese territory so that the people of Japan can return as the island resurfaces, which it does, and they do. And that, ironically, is a very Japanese thought process. That which sinks will eventually rise again. It kind of only makes sense. Japan Sinks is a lesson in knowing the difference between loving your country and blind nationalism, in respecting traditions versus an inability to accept progress and change. And of the characters who survive this ordeal, Go and Ayumu are both changed for the better because of these lessons. Despite living in Estonia now, Go represents Japan in the Olympics, showing he's come to terms with his heritage and actively respects the country he grew up in while still moving forward for what he wants in his life. Meanwhile, Ayumu pushes forward too, competing in track in the Paralympics with a prosthetic. And ironically, Ayumu's leg itself ends up being the most important piece of symbolism throughout the entirety of the anime. When Japan begins its withdrawal into the ocean, her leg is cut, and as the country withers in agony, the cut festers. Finally, as the island sinks, the leg must be cut off in order to save Ayumu's life. However, it's just the leg, and instead of dying with it, she chooses to have it removed and move on. And instead of living life in a wheelchair, she gets a prosthetic and returns to running track. She keeps her home alive in her heart by representing it to the world in the Paralympics, and like her leg, Japan will be rebuilt as well. Japan Sinks is an anime about a nation caught between the past and the present, between traditionalism and modernism, between holding on to what's important and letting go of excess baggage so you can easily move into the future. However, most importantly, what this show is about is figuring out what exactly is important and what is baggage. What makes Japan Japan? Is it the country? Is it the people? Is it both? Can one survive without the other? And for an anime that is as sad as it is, as bleak as it seems to be, the ending with a small group of young elites participating in the Olympics shows that even with Japan completely gone, its population decimated, it still has not broken the Japanese people, which shows an oddly optimistic view of the future, because the only constant in life is change, and now is always the best time to embrace it. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mike. There are so many more things in this show that I would have liked to have covered, but there is a certain amount of time restraint that we have in our videos. We don't want them to go too long. We can't expect you guys to sit down for like an hour. However, one thing that I did want to bring up was the death of Ayumu's mother, Mari. I think that death really symbolizes the end of Japan, like the cutting of the tie, the cutting of the cord. The idea of not only Ayumu finally officially forever being on her own, but also the Japanese people now being on their own without the protection of the land of Japan. And that was just one of the neat things that I realized while I was actually editing this video, like after we wrote the script, after we, started production and everything like that. So there's much more to find in there, and I hope that if you find more that you leave it in the comments below. So videos are going to be a little bit weird this month. I'm talking about September. We are gearing up for October, November, and December. Those are going to be very big months. We are revamping the channel. We are going to be starting a new merch initiative. We're going to be partnering with a couple of people to hopefully bring you guys some awesome stuff from us and from them. And it's going to be really good. We have to bounce back from this Afro Samurai debacle that we've been dealing with for the past couple months. So the best way that we could figure out to do that was to take this month to write. We're going to cover everything that we've been wanting to cover for a long time, and we're going to drop it all for you starting October. Now, of course, the podcasts are going to be coming out regularly, so you can expect those on time when we usually put them out. And when we come back, we're going to come back hard, we're going to come back fast, and we're going to come back with the best content that we've ever put out. So if you would like to support us during that endeavor, I definitely recommend the Patreon. And with that being said, I would like to thank our super special patron of the week, Reborn World. Thank you so much for being our patron. We appreciate your support and allowing us to make the best content that we can possibly make. And it wouldn't be an episode of Bonsai Pop without thanking our very super special Super Saiyan God of the week. That is our top tier, which is Kit Bass J. Kit, thank you so much for being an awesome patron, let alone one of our top donors. You are always there in the viewing parties and in the chat, and I think a lot of people look up to you in the Patreon. So keep being you. We appreciate you. And of course, our top donor, Calamity Cookie, my dude, you are the best. And that's it for me this time, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Just being here makes you a very special kind of viewer. So if you would like to follow us on Twitter, that is bonsai_pop, Instagram bonsai_pop, twitch.tv/bonsai_pop. And don't forget, our podcast is out on all podcast platforms except for Pandora, but who cares? Who listens to podcasts on Pandora? Come on, what's going on? My name is Mike. This is Bonsai Pop. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.